there you have it. Those are some of your comments. You can keep them coming. Read them as we continue on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. Talking about Twitter and social media. Now, it's been an eventful couple of weeks on the news and social media, from the cabinet reshuffle, the midnight cabinet reshuffle on the local front, to Trump's 100 days in office on the international front. And as usual, we are joined by Tonya Khoury, the Managing Director of Roy Africa, to unpack this all for us. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Lovely to be with you, Elvis.
National Workers' Day yesterday. Did it trend?
Absolutely. It was a very big story. I think it came in at 17% of our social media conversation, largely due to Cosatu and the booing of President Jacob Zuma, and the rally not actually being completed.
Yes.
You know, that made big news. May Day, though, made big news across the world.
Yeah.
It was interesting to see the number of images from across the globe where there were violent protests, peaceful protests, almost a remembrance of previous May Day rallies and that sort of thing. I mean, we've seen some interesting stuff come out of France. Certainly doesn't look like it's only us who are having some sort of uprising around the May Day
there was
ceremony.
fire all over the policemen in France, eh?
Yes.
So, but we've also seen the public spat here at home between the new Minister of Police and Tlameza's boss burning in Tlameza. Was that also trending in the week past?
You know what I found interesting was the newsrooms. There were so many different stories over the past week. So newsrooms put out the stories. They didn't last very long. And in fact, Fikile Mbalula and the Tlameza spat didn't quite make the newsroom charts. But in social media, we didn't miss a trick.
Yeah?
Social media, good 10 to 15% of our social media conversation focused on that particular story. And essentially, it turned to humor as well. There was Finding in Tlameza was one of the big trending hashtags there. The one you've seen on the chart now, it's the social media. It's the social media over the past 7 days. There you can see at the very top, you've got Burning in Tlameza coming in at 2.29%. And then Fikile Mbalula is about the fourth to, if you work clockwise, Fikile Mbalula comes in at about 5.63%. So the two of them certainly made an impact on our charts. Freedom Day was huge amongst the social media conversation, but not so big in newsrooms. Newsrooms, 2 to 3% of our newsroom coverage, which I found strange. But Freedom Day this year wasn't so much about a commemoration of the past, but more on a lack of progression. People focusing on that with a great deal.
I'm quite interested to see that the nuclear deal made a little bit of a dent there.
Yes.
7.7%, is that correct? Yeah?
Again, another story that in newsrooms was very small, but in social media we didn't miss a trick again. The so-called nuke deal hashtag or nuclear deal hashtag, those made big waves, 8% of our social media conversation over a week's period.
Now, the FICA bill dropped over the weekend, late Saturday, so that is why probably it's not here.
It didn't make the top 10, not yet. It probably will during the course of this week as people start to learn more about what actually happened there. So yes.
But the president is still trending, hey?
Biggest story by far. Zuma Must Fall is the biggest story by far, coming in at a good 21% of our social media conversation. That's a lot smaller than last week. It's been 3 weeks now solidly on the charts. So, yeah.
Pravin Gordhan has been fired, but I see he's still there on the chart. What's going on?
That particular story, I think, is more about the CNN interview more than anything else. Yes. Where he spoke quite. He was very diplomatic, unlike Pravin Gordhan in the past that we've seen in the past couple of weeks. But he did make an impact there, 4.21%.
And then, of course, junk status is also still trending. Yeah.
Hasn't left the charts for 3 weeks, 12.47%. Huge, absolutely huge.
I tell you. Now, on the international front, we see Donald Trump dominated the social media scene from his 100 days in office to his willingness to meet with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. But under the right circumstance, he called it. Some are suggesting it's the two men with the baddest hairstyle in the world, and they having a beef with each other.
Well, it's certainly, I mean, it's keeping most of the world on the edge of its seats, the story with North Korea and the US. Certainly, Donald Trump's 100 days was the biggest story over the past 7 days in international news media. But if you look at all the Trump stories, Elvis, I mean, it's a good 70% of our news media's top 10 over the past week. I mean, the French election is in there, 9.38%, but doesn't come close to Trump's 100 days at 20.91%.
Because if you look at it, from the 100 days to the wall is still there,
it's
the Mexican
still there.
wall.
Mexico's still there. North Korea's there. Obamacare is still there. Russia, and then of course Syria. Those all combined give us a good 70% of the charts. But here's something that astonished me. Kim Kardashian went without Photoshop this week.
Yes,
okay?
she did.
She did.
I can't wait to see the picture.
She's half the size. Oh, you don't want to see it. Save yourself. Kim Kardashian went without Photoshop, and she's half the size of the Syrian-Iraqi refugee crisis.
My goodness
now, isn't that
gracious.
ridiculous? That's
Absolutely ridiculous. Americans and their trending. What else that we can look out forward to in the week to come? Probably the FICA bill we mentioned, yes?
I think absolutely the FICA bill. I think as people slowly get back to work, I think politics will still continue to trend across our charts. It has been so for the majority of this year.
Tanya, as usual, thank you so much for coming through and updating us on social media.
Always a pleasure, Alvis.
That was Tanya Khoury, the Managing Director of Roy Africa, giving us an update there. We'll take a short break and we'll be coming back right after that. Thank you, it was so good to see you.